Oh, right. One thing I liked about Ely Hospital, I haven't got no particular favourite. I can remember it like tomorrow. It was a Saturday, and like I said to Cardiff, it was a Saturday. I was going down the drive, and I said to my staff, I can't believe I'm actually going to my house. And I was poking myself to see what I thought it was a dream, but it wasn't a dream. It happened. I met in Kempton, where people treat me as a person, not the person with a number. Well, I got a maisonette flat with an upstairs bathroom, a bedroom. I got a downstairs lounge and a kitchen. What you always want for a cup of tea for a day in need first thing in the morning. I'm much happier now as what I was when I was in Ely Hospital.
Why is that mad?
Because the staff has got more time to talk to you. In Ely, I didn't have a time to talk to you. My life has changed drastically for the better. Fab. Fantastic.
Can you tell us about resettlement, how people got used to living independently?
Well, the resettlement programme, well, again, the resettlement programme didn't happen overnight. It was a long process. I think people saw the writing on the wall, people knew the problems of the hospitals, and as a union rep, I found it difficult to try and convince my members that the closure of the hospital is a good idea, because a lot of people used to have lots of meetings with staff members who used to say, well, we can't close the hospital because I'd be out of a job. Well, I said, well, you can't really use that as a rationale for keeping the hospital open, you know. It's, the institutions have served their time, they haven't actually delivered what they were supposed to do, and I think people should have been in the community. You know, people were put in the hospital because they were supposed to be educated and returned to the community, but they were never returned, they stayed there. So that was a big issue. So there's a lot of resentment, a lot of, you know, people used to say, well, residents really don't want to go in the community, it's cruel, this is the only thing they've known all their lives. So we had a long drawn out process of trying to convince people that's the way they go. A lot of the staff took as the opportunity to retire because they didn't want to, because after all, a lot of the staff was as institutionalised as a lot of the residents, you know. There was fear about moving and this change. People don't like change. And I think once people accepted it, then there was, interestingly, there was a lot of applications and interest to actually move into the community. And then it was a process then of trying to select the right people to move in the community. We were fairly culturally mixed in terms of the staff group there. We had a lot of West Indian, particularly in nursing, in the lower ranks, nursing assistants and in the domestics, had different culture from the majority of people, because we tended to recruit from the Ely estate, which predominantly was white. And when the first wave of staff went out, I remember seeing that there was 10 posts for nursing assistants, and they were all taken up by nursing assistants who were from a white background. When I pointed out that all the people who had so far been resettled were all nursing assistants who were white, the next wave then resulted in, I suppose, the balance being addressed then. There's a few, and we've had domestic disputes over racist attitudes, so it's, you know, we Ely reflected what happened outside, you know, no different.
Can I ask you very briefly to tell us what your role is now, and how having worked at Ely helps you, or it touches on the role that you have now?
Right. Well, at the moment I'm Divisional Head of Learning Disability Development. I'm responsible for learning disability nursing in the University of Glamorgan, and because we're the only university or school, I guess it's for the whole of South Wales. How has Ely helped me? Well, I suppose it started me off on my career in nursing. You know, I've got lots to be grateful about Ely Hospital. I really do. I saw Ely Hospital as a sanctuary for many years. It certainly gave me a view of how you treat people with learning disabilities. You know, I don't think at the time, you know, institutions like Ely served the purpose. You know, I think it reflected society's views at the time, their values, and I guess to a certain extent it still affects people now, because then it was out of sight, out of mind. And I think, you know, although we like to think we're more enlightened, when you look at some of the inquiries now, you think to yourself, well, have things radically changed? I don't think so. I think the attitudes are still there. They're not so overt as they are by putting people away, but I think they're still there. The negativity is still there. In terms of the students nowadays, well, of course the students now don't go to places like Ely, and when I talk about the history and some of my experience, you know, you've got them on the edge of their seats because they can't believe some of the things that went on there, in terms of some of the negative things, when I look at some of the abuses that took place, but also some of the positives, you know, where we did teach people to do their shoelaces, people to dress. We were their family in a lot of respects. You know, when people were upset because they've had traumas in their lives, we had mothers there who used to, it's a lovely word, kutch, but they used to kutch a lot of the residents there, and they were their extended family. And I think the lessons that we learned from Ely, and we can see it now with in the private sector, with the building of all these large hospitals. I don't think large institutions are the answer. I thought Wales had moved away from that. You know, I know in England it's still a part of their policy to build these sorts of things. So on the one hand, in the public sector, we've learnt the lessons from the past. We're not building these large institutions. We live in small, contained units within the community. More importantly, people are living with families now, so they're getting that normalised experience. And yet in the private sector, if you can make a profit, you can build these large hospitals with, you know, very, very little planning permission. You just get on and treat people, in a sense, almost like commodities. And that's the one thing it really sticks in my throat. You can't treat human beings like commodities to buy and sell. You know, you've got the Winterbourne inquiry now. What happens to the clients then? You know, they're closing up. They're like commodities, as if they're human beings. You know, we're using them to elicit profit for people. And for me, it's, you know, it's obscene. There's an obscenity there. You know, so there's lots of things going on wrong in the services. But overall, I can think about Ely Hospital. I have lots of happy memories. I also have some sickening memories. And on balance, would I want to live in the hospital? Probably not. If I was a resident, probably not. As a staff member, well, I gained a lot from working in Ely, and I think I tried, you know, to make a difference in people's lives, you know, in terms of your standards and your value base. But sometimes you're fighting an uphill battle.
Why did Ely Hospital close?
Because it was felt that we didn't need to put people in great big large institutions like that they would be better off in smaller houses, living on their own, living with their friends, instead of all being put together. And it was happening all over, but I think it was probably a good move for most people, yes. It gave them a bit more independence and a bit more choice about what they could do.
What happened to the residents when the hospital closed?
Different residents went to different places. Most went, I think, to small group homes. Some moved back to the areas they came from. There were residents that came from all over South Wales, quite a few from Swansea or from the Bridgend area, and they went back to live in that area, which probably put them closer to their families as well, which would be better. But a lot went into small houses with 3 or 4 people living in them, with people there to help support them. What's nice is I see some of them still around town, which is nice.
June, can you tell us one thing you really liked about the hospital?
What was your best thing about it?
Used to have a shower every morning. Kept ourselves very clean.
You did? What did you like? What was your favourite thing about Ely?
What did they do?
What did you like? So you liked it at Ely? And you made lots of friends?
Named after a fern, wasn't it?
It was.